Welcome to this new moon for Co-Create Avatars International Network. I am grandmother Kaariina, Natalie Saarinen, master's degree in educational counseling and grandmother of the turquoise heart. I'm a spiritual grandmother, and I've been asked by our beautiful lead editor for this particular new moon of Libra in October 2021 by Jennifer Stevenson. What is it that we as women can offer as men experience their deep, abiding, and longing for liberation from the grief of men? I had to really be inside of this sphere of inquiry for more than a few moments. And what I want to offer is first the protocol. So elders acknowledge that we are centered and grounded, and through the breath and life force of billions of years of earth, we are fully recognizing that we are energies in motion, in cyclical nature, spiraling through this universe. We are of this earth and yet not of this world. We give thanks, therefore, in our understanding and appreciation for youth leaders and for your inquiries, that we are here because of our motherline, Maria Helen Marietta Hukki Sorki Hautala Saarinen. We are here because of our fatherline, and that was an agreement, Pentti Pauli Valdemar Saarinen. We are here because of an agreement with our first shamans and medicine people, four-legged winged ones, creepy crawlies, insects, tortuga in four directions, and swimming ones, small and great, singing ones, winged ones. We are here because of the plants, much more ancient and wise than two-legged humans. We are here because of these great standing ones, the arbiolitos. And despite the fact that humans are here in southern British Columbia, clear-cutting 2,000-year-old trees, and the 1,000-year-old trees in Northern California, the sequoia, are on fire. Because of our arrogance and our ignorance that we are in an evolutionary rising right now, emerging from the cloaks of our unwillingness to realize we're children in a playground. We're children at the beach. We're children in the forests of life and in the understories. We're unwilling to realize that many of us, in 6 billion human beings on this planet, are in a deeply reactive and regressive state. So I want to give thanks to Jennifer's inquiry. And I want us to, first and foremost, just sit and just imagine our anus and our genitalia and this little strip of land between, called the Huyin, is a place where we pulse the communion with 6 billion years of earth life. And as we sit and allow that to be the golden light of our awareness, that we are being pulsed by her, we are being impulsed through our nervous system, through all of our systems, through this watery component that lives here inside the capsulation called skin, that this water that washes every single cell, gland, and organ is influenceable, that we are influenceable from our inner space, in our inner playground, our inner forest understory, our inner universe, that we can influence the outcome of this conversation right now. Because we agreed where two or more are gathered, there the oneness is. And the oneness of Great Spirit, no matter what color of our skin, no matter how old we are, no matter how young we are, no matter what the size, form, and shape we are, we have a universe in this great 0 point, this Huyin. We have this pulsing from this earth life that says, you belong here. There's nothing you need to do to win my approval or to receive my permission to be alive. You already belong. You belong to this 6 billion year old cycling through all of the universe, with this central intelligence of the sun shining equally on everyone, with all of these other planets and star systems, with this incredible stellar experience. We are saying, as elders and grandmas and grandpas to you, you can give it up. You can return to the inner playground, to that inner forest, to that inner beach, to that inner place of innocence again, and really liberate ourselves from that which is creating commotion, that which is inundating our eardrums and our eustachian tubes, and therefore our brains, that which we are externally mandated to obey and comply. We can give all of that up because it's simply an iteration, an echo of a geomorphological time when we obeyed an external authority. But when we return today to this inner playground, we realize that the great gift, the grace and peace and joy and love is that we're all children. So today, just for today, are we going to get on the teeter-totter and experience what it's like to have a fulcrum here and to balance the power, to balance the life force, to balance the energy, and play pushing off and seeing what happens as a consequence of our desire to push up, and then what happens as a consequence of our desire to get heavy and go down, and what happens as a consequence of these two aspects all connected to this fulcrum that is actually the womb, and these are the fallopian tubes, and these are the ovaries of the female and the ovaries of the male, that these are actually being held in the womb space, held by water. What happens when we put that lens on and stop our reactivity by breathing deeply, and stop our reactivity and impulsiveness to fight, flight, freeze, flee, faint? What happens when we realize we're exhausted? We're bone weary, we're emotionally exhausted from defending and fighting for a position. What happens if on a playground, and I'll go to the forest floor later on, but on a playground that there's lots of toys to play with. There's this little bouncing horse that we can take turns and go on that, or this little train ride that goes across from one stand to another, and we can take turns being the engineer or getting on the caboose, woo, woo, and just moving across time space. What happens when there are 3 different slides to choose from: the big high slide, the curving slide, or the short quick slide? What happens if all of those are analogies for how we're labored and delivered? What happens if we find the common ground? Not only is there an external playground, there is an internal reality inside the womb of the mother, inside the womb of the grandmother, inside the womb of the great grandmother, inside the womb of the great great grandmother, and the great 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 grandmother. There it is. So this great 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 grandmother is holding all of us in this watery womb, in this watery time and space of big love and heart. What would happen if we could embrace the possibility that we could dissolve our anxiety, the possibility that we could give up our panic disorders, that we could give up our desire to control, our desire to be in charge no matter what? And if I'm compliant to an outer authority, you damn well better be compliant to my outer authority. It's like the dog kicking the cat, kicking the rat, kicking the mouse, and it just comes all the way down from human form. What happens if we just give up those dominoes and don't play that game anymore? You know, just imagine for a moment that we're hanging from a tree with an old knotted rope. And that rope is the double helix of the DNA. And imagine we're just hanging from that genetic rope, and there's a knot on which our little beautiful butt is seated, and our both sides of our legs are scrunching together, and we're on this old black tire, this old wheel of grief, and we're going back and forth in space in this old great big tree, a one world tree. And there we are going back and forth in time and space. We're going back to the past and looking at where we came from and having reactivity to where we came from, instead of seeing there's time and space being held by a great, great, great grandmother. And she's just embracing all of us, just as we are, just for today. And then that wheel of grief moves forward into the future, but taking with it that denial that we're loved, that denial that we belong, that denial that we have everything that we need, truly, that we are in charge of our responsibility. We are accountable for our ability to respond. And that those early labors and delivery traumas from the great grandmother, the grandmother, the mother to us, that those traumas are configurations of decisions that have influenced us long enough. So just be with that decision. Here on this playground of our common reality, here within this player that is on the playground, that is on this earth, that is our common ground, realize these are universal principles. We go back and forth, but how often do we realize we're creating that momentum? That by going back and regressing in the dynamic of relationships between women and men, between partners, whether we're female, female, male, male, but we're partnering a much higher accord. That higher accord is if we climb up the ladder of the genetic, if we climb up the ladder of this rope of the double helix in the DNA, and we climb up to that branch, we see we're reacting to a branch of our family tree. We're in the reactivity of our ancestry. And if we get onto that branch and we come back to the main tree and we hug that tree, the tree does not ask for compliance. It does not ask for police force to charge us with any degree of criminal activity for protesting the cutting down of its ancestors. The tree does not have a governance that is external. The tree in this playground, this common ground, the tree has a set of roots that go deeply into the earth body through the yin of our being, our family tree, our inner tree of central nervous system and parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous systems, that we can pulse this ancient wisdom instead of reacting, instead of regressing, instead of worrying about and being panically disorderly in our conduction of energy. We can actually end that cycle, that back and forth, that back and forth, that back and forth. And we can say that this has been the wheel of grief. So on the playground of life, are we willing? You see, I'm just giving you a whole series of inquiries. Are we willing to recognize that some of us want to be on that horse and ride that willpower? And we don't want to share with other kids because we come from a mother wound that said, you know, I'm really afraid of being a mother. I'm afraid of the accountability. I'm afraid of the responsibility. But slow down for a minute. That fear of your responsibility, your ability to respond to your thighs and how you hold the reins of that horse, that's your responsibility at a certain age in the ages and stages of this wheel. That is your responsibility. And the mother's responsibility is to go to her playground with other women and other sisters and grandmothers and aunties and nieces and cousins and learn what it is that we in our contracted heart took on as an echo from our motherline, from the matriarchal, from the bloodline of women who bleed. And that's her work. And the father of this little kid on the horse going, okay, I don't want to give up the reins. And there's 3 kids waiting to get on the horse. And this kid is saying, no, I haven't got enough time on the horse. I want more time. And takes that pout and that temper tantrum and just gets that horse and just jabs into the sides of the horse and goes and gathers momentum in its grief. Hear that again, it's grief. It's confusion, it's scaredness, it's despair, it's frustration, fury, and anger. What are we doing to the forest? What are we doing to the playgrounds? What are we doing to our inner and outer children? There's this incredible pummeling of the soul right now through the electromagnetic fields, through computers, yes, through Zoom and through newsletters and e-zines. There's an incredible pummeling of the innocence of children, of the true soul's purpose of a child, which is to explore and to discover, because life is an experiment. Explore and discover. If I squeeze my thighs on this horse and I pull up the reins, what's going to happen to the horse? What's going to happen to my will? What's going to happen when I squeeze my thighs and I pull the reins back and I say, whoa, a child needs to learn that is the child's responsibility to be trained, to receive the training, to learn the consequence of a whoa, the consequence of a squeeze in the sides of a horse, the consequence of saying that sound, whoa. The consequence of those 3 kids waiting to get on the horse in the playground, the consequence of saying, no, it's all about me. I'm not getting off. I haven't had enough yet. I'm coming from my scarcity and my unwillingness to give up my horse. And that's called control. I'm going to control my willpower to make sure I have enough, because I didn't have enough of mother nursing, of mother's presence for 9 months of gestation. I didn't have enough of a confirmation of the love of the mother by the father, and the mother feeling supported and loved and truly held in sacred partnership, which is very rare, by the way. I would say that we're sitting at probably 94% of humanity does not have this relationship. And so only 6% have it. So no wonder there's scarcity. Scarcity of the mother, scarcity of the father, scarcity of the true education of how to be partners and how to be parents and how to be effective in communicating and working through this genetic cord, which, by the way, in shamanism actually hangs us. And at some point we have to realize it's an initiation, it's a death. And we have to recognize that death is a gate. It's not something to be afraid of. Death is a gate, and we exhale death, and we have orgasms and there's death, and we have conception and there's death, and we have labor and delivery and there's death, and we have bleeding every month and there's death, and we have the dying that is pro-moribund. It's an interesting word, is compromised health. That evolved in the last 14 months for me. I didn't know there was a pro-moribund or a co-moribund, an attitude that, well, I'm going to die anyway, so give me another pill and help me to release my chronic pain or my emotional exhaustion or my bone weariness, and go to an external authority. Instead of asking the pain, what's your message? Instead of asking the inner child, what do you truly need? How can I serve you as the adult form? How can I serve you, my beautiful inner child, my inner infant, my inner toddler, my inner child, my inner pubescence, my inner adolescent, my inner young adult? How can I serve you, your genius, your gifts, so that you're not coming from neediness and saying, how do I belong here? How can I end this scarcity? How can I be prosperous and authentically abundant? And how can I show up fully in the light and the brilliance of who I am, so that others perceive me as capable, competent, responsible, accountable, and that I can actually serve others. So today on this new moon of Libra, this returning back to the teeter-totter, this balance, we need to recognize that the fulcrum is the womb. And this imbalance in the ovaries of the feminine and the ovaries of the masculine really began in women. And that if we were to track this mother line and go horizontally, we would find a decision. And that decision is a quanta. It's a quanta, it's subatomic particles dancing in a specific configuration. But we can take that configuration and bring it to the light of our heart and say to our inner baby and our inner toddler, our inner child, our inner pubescent, our inner adolescent, our inner young adult, we can say, I'm here for you. This decision is now dissolved. We can let that decision go, so that consequence that's been coming all the way down, like that kid riding the horse, we can say, whoa, let's pull in the reins. Let's squeeze the thighs on the side of the horse and say, thank you, willpower. You now have the willpower to get off that decision, to get off the ripple of that decision, to stop riding that wavelength of that decision. We have that capacity now. Science is finally catching up with spiritual teachings and mysticism and shamanism, because we've known this for generations of teachings. So we can change that. So the inquiry was, what is it that we can do as women external, as men external, to create a sacred space where we can return to the innocence of the playground and actually take turns and realize that there's more than enough sands of time in the playgrounds around here for sure, and that there's more than enough equipment to play, and that we could have children lining up to the light of the day, to the pure love of the great-great-grandmothers, and just take our turns and have conversations with each other and breathe easefully into the womb and the roots, and understand that we're held by 6 billion years of Earth Mother. And these playgrounds are man's imitation of the forest. They're man's imitation of the beach. They're man's imitation of the jungle. They're man's imitation of the shores of rivers and great lakes and oceans and seas. So man created playgrounds because man knew innovatively, creatively, imaginatively, that children needed to play on this common ground, and that the work of children is to play, is to explore, is to discover, is to experiment, is to have this unknown hypothesis that says, well, what would happen if you pressed down on this part of the teeter-totter and you let your feet go and went up and I went down, and there would be an agreement to cooperate and to play, an agreement to explore and to discover, not to have power over, not to have so much derelictness or neglect be in charge of those who are on the teeter-totter. But we have to confess as adults, whether we're grandmothers or grandfathers or in the ancient ways or in the current parenting model, that we have let our children down. We have not sat with them and taught them how to feel in their bodies, into their 10 toes and into their buttocks and into that hui yin that's grounded in 6 billion years of Earth life. We have not taught them that it's okay to go up and down and this too will change. And that it's okay to go over to the horse and ride furiously and yell and scream and let go the fury and frustration of these times. And it's okay to take turns because your turn will come again. It's okay to climb the ladder onto the choo-choo train and be the engineer for a while, whether you're boy, girl, man or child, man or woman, it matters not, or be in the caboose and ride it from that way, or be part of the freight train or the passenger train. It's okay to have a vokara, a calling, and take turns and experiment as children what your skills, capacities, interests, and passions are. It's okay. And to get to the other side and go, Grandma, look, I'm here. And to see that in that one child being an engineer, there were 17 other children that were employed to ride that children's train to the other side. And that we're all going as children to the other side. And we're all taking turns to get to that other side, which is maturity, which is the cultivation of capacity, which is the enduring and forever redeeming faculty called imagination. And so Einstein said it, imagination is more important, and certainly gives us in these critical times on planet Earth an opportunity to see the death of information and the death of knowledge and the beginning of another level of imagination. Imagine if we could actually see to the other side of what this planet as a planetary experience is experiencing right now. Imagine if at the end of 2, 3, 4 years that we're emerging into a new paradigm, a new set of lenses, and that yes, many will feel the death gate, and it will be the call of the co-moribund or the pro-moribund, and it will be that life is too much, or there's too much compromise and not enough congruence or integrity or impeccability, not enough surrender with humor and humility to the inner child and to the playground, an unwillingness to let go of that outer authority, of that need for permission, that need for approval. What would happen if those people, they just let go, they surrendered and they went through the death gate, and we learned the lessons of the teeter-totter, we learned the lessons of the riding of the horse, we learned the lessons of the train, we learned the lesson of that genetic rope that goes up to the branch of the one world tree, and we're just one branch swinging in our ages and stages and our cycles of grief. We're swinging to the past and to the future, but when we're centered, we realize we chose to get on that wheel. We chose to hang on to that genetic rope. We chose, in some cases, to put the rope around our necks and to say, this is just too much. And in that grief wheel of despair, saying, this is all uncontrollable. I have no hope. I have no faith. I am just going to let go. And that's okay. Death is a choice. It's a transformation of all of that fear into the love that is awaiting on the other side. So just for today, be with this. How are we going to return to the village? A village that built a playground for its children, a village in which elders and shamans and medicine people offered their gifts, and there was a free economic exchange honoring and accepting that these passions and interests were long ago chosen, long ago decided, long ago defined as a divine gift. And in that village, every child has a gift. Every being at these ages and stages has an unfolding of a genius, the gene of the eye of all of us. And it moves from the little I to the bigger I, to the we, to the us, to the united soul body of oneness, and takes on service. What would happen if in that village lens, that vision of village, every child belongs? And therefore, if a boy man meets a girl man, and a girl man boy meets a boy girl man, there's no judgment. We all came from the same place. We all came from the teeter-totter of the womb. We all came from the fulcrum of the uteri. We all came from the earth vase of the vagina. We all came down through the cervical ring of true power. We all came from that moment of penetration and conception. We all came from 9 months, 9 chakras, 9 dimensions, yielding 1 0, the 1 and the 0. We all came from that innocent moment of, wow, we just got conceived into a human form from a great, great, great grandma, still embracing us, asking in prayer, in confirmation, in teachings, in its own ancient language, because it's not English. We all speak in the mother tongue, a very ancient language like the whoa, ho, ahe, aho. We all speak these ancient seed syllables. And what would happen if we're the answer to those great, great, great grandmother's prayers? And that the person sitting in front of you, the person looking at you in male or female form, external, that person has an inner child. And you invite it to come to play on the teeter-totter of life, to play in the intimacy of learning that hypothesis. What happens when you test that hypothesis? What happens when you experiment and discover that? What happened when you resonate more with the horse or more with the engine or more with the swing? What happens if you resonate more and your passion is to sit beside a river that's now here in British Columbia streaming with salmon? On the opposite side of the river is the black bear, catching what it needs for itself for the winter. And what happens if you look at the eagle up there and it has a vision? And it's going to spiral down when the bear finishes eating that salmon and leaves some of the bones, and the eagle's going to come down and strip all of it. What happens when we realize that's part of our great cycle, that we're food, that we're fodder, that we're fuel and energy for our ancestors, our creator teachers, our creature teachers? And what would happen if we realized that the eagle is actually generating a spiral that says, when you're ready to give up your form, eat well now, for I will eat of you. I will drink of your blood, and I will peck at your brain inside your skull and eat it, and it will feed the eagles in my nest. And what will happen if we surrender and say to the black bear, go ahead and eat, whatever you need, eat. I surrender. My life has been fulfilled. I am not grieving. I live a fulfilling life. I live a perpetuous life. I like that word. I live an auspicious life. I live a life that is given to me by my mother line, my father line, by the first shamans and medicine people, and I'm fulfilling my purpose. And is there any grief there? Or is there a return to the playground, the forest floor, to the edges of the ocean, the seas, to the sides of the river? What would happen if we just surrendered and resigned, not in a negative way, not in a pro-moribund or a co-moribund way, but surrendered to life force, 6 billion years rising and pulsing through our nervous system? What would happen if we gave thanks for that breath, a beginning, a middle, and an end? So just for today, I offer you this new moon message for Libra, returning to harmony and balance, and a journey of being intimate with ourselves and taking care of ourselves, our inner ages and stages, and then learning to really accept where the other in the outer realm is coming from and what age and stage are they at, or are they on the grief wheel, or are they in their ancestors' branch and stuck up there in a genetic cord around their necks, experiencing a shamanic initiation and the potential for dying before fully being born, before fully manifesting and cultivating the garden of life and the forest floor and the fungi and the mushrooms, and being fully fed with authentic, real, honest, organic food, being fed for all of our relations, all of our relations. And we are the food for the future now. Omatea. I want to give thanks to our co-creavataric team and give thanks to Jennifer Stevenson for editing this, and give thanks to all those who helped to establish ourselves through our full moon e-zines and our new moon e-zines. And you can be in touch with me through www.cocreavatars.net. And Maria, my assistant, my very able assistant, we'll be able to tap you into a subscription for our full moon and new moon e-zines. You can also join us for Authentic Abundance this Thursday at noon for a 21-day pilgrimage of prayer for Tonon Sin. And you can join us for the full moon Sunday of the great earth healing vases, the bundles that we create and plant all over the planet so we can release and detoxify the toxic shame, grief, pain, doubt, forgetfulness, and the fear of our ancestors. It's not personal. And we have many tools and ways with which to practice the yoga and the union of returning to healer, warrior, beloved, elder, grandmothers, grandfathers, and the crystalline core. So I give thanks, and you can join me in any of those ways. And I'm happy to offer you our 5-week session. We're starting this week from Chaos into Service, which is a 5-week one-to-one, and I'm accepting 3 more people for this particular bundle. And in another 2 weeks, we'll be launching a 6-month journey, which will take us deeply and profoundly into the true acknowledgement that we are here to serve. And may this be in service. For all our relations, I love you. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other. And for God's sake, remember the playground.